Hello, welcome everybody to a very special episode of the GMS Magazine podcast or vidcast if you're actually watching this on numerous platformations. As you can see, today we are once again joined by the Steam presence of one of the coolest people in the gaming industry, and I say that to his face because that's the kind of guy I
Thank you.
am.
Oh, you don't mean me.
Oh, and there is Jamie too, of course.
Oh,
And I'm here too. Yeah.
yeah, I just egg on my face. No, of course we're talking about Jamey Stegmaier.
Welcome
Thank
back.
you so much.
Welcome
Yeah,
back, dude.
thanks
It's
for
been
having me.
yeah, as always, it's a pleasure. So come on, you know you're always welcome to be here anytime you like. So anyway, normally I would introduce my co-host, which is Chris, but today I can be asked, Jamie, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing well. It's a very cold day in St. Louis, but I'm cozy and warm inside today.
What's the temperature there, if you want me asking?
I think it's around 5 degrees Fahrenheit right now. So
Is that
it's been
minus
hovering
20?
right around zero.
Oh, okay. A mate from Omaha sent me yesterday a screen grab of his phone. They were at minus 21 Celsius. And I thought, no. No.
Negative 31 Celsius.
Well, positive
That was-
24
That was
Celsius.
that's about negative 24 Fahrenheit.
Today, there were people in the beach in Valencia at 24 Celsius. So,
I
boom.
hate you so much. So anyway, we have, like I said, I have a large collection of games here. I always like telling people that if you want to see our reviews, I have a review for Euphoria on our channel. The Wingspan review was done with Jason Peacock on Dice Tower. My tapestry review is also on our channel. And I always like pointing out this is the one that got me fired from Dice Tower. And
Really? Is there a story there? I don't think I know that.
the whole thing. I was making a very. I love the game. We've played it. It's probably the game we've played the most. I'll be 100% honest. I think it's my wife. It might actually usurp Caverna as her all-time favorite game because she plays it. And I want to point out we got this for Christmas,
Oh, you got. Oh, nice.
which I have to ask you, like, is that a thing now? Is this the new?
Yeah, it's something we've experimented with for any packaging that we know that people are just going to throw away or recycle. That
Yeah.
we you didn't show the back of it because your address is probably on it, but so we made it. It isn't on there, but we made it so that if that was all that you ordered, the fulfillment center should have put the label just right on the back of it, so they're not even adding any extra packaging to it.
Yeah.
So-
Is there going to be a big box tapestry, so like we saw with Scythe, and just so because I know that we have every expansion in there. I mean, this like we have some stuff over here. We have all the expansions now. We have everyone. We have
Yeah.
tapestry. I think the other one is squeezed in there. But this, I'm pretty sure, is not going to squeeze in there. It's a pretty tight fit as it is. Is there a big box coming?
Well, somewhat magically, we thought about it, but the tapestry box itself, the original box is pretty big, and we worked with Folded Space, and they found a way to actually fit everything from all 3 expansions and the core game in there if you get the Folded Space insert. And so if you take out the original insert, everything should fit, but it'll be really disorganized. But with the Folded Space insert, it somehow everything magically fits.
All right, I guess we're going to
Yeah.
try it out. We're going to see about getting this fit. I'm looking forward to this one. I have to admit, it's very interesting. The latest expansion, I have to admit, the one that added the 5th tracker.
Yes. Arts and
It
architecture.
was,
Yeah.
that one. I have to admit, that one was crazy. It was one of the craziest game experiences. I had a combination that worked out really well. To give you an example, my wife's ending score was 155. Mine was 530.
Wow.
I created a comment. I wasn't even cheating. And I'm also, one of the things I mentioned this in our previous podcast because we were showing out Christmas gifts. One of the things I love the most about this expansion that I love, it's probably going to be my number one addition. If I can find it, is the addition of a 5th round, a 5th era.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I commonly, although not with the last game, we commonly like adding in an extra era because we like playing the game so much. So I have to appreciate. Thank you, because obviously somebody was talking to you about it. Enough people talked about it to include.
Yeah. it's kind of it's not a full 5th era, but it does add. There's certain abilities in that expansion that let you do things after your 5th income turn. Yeah, but you could also just use it to play 5th era if you want to. I see we have another guest appearing today. Who is this, Paco?
Oh, sorry. This is sorry. I beg your pardon. This is Taiko. This is my my best friend, and my familiar. And for some reason, he is lately being rather clingy. And the thing is, he was playing with this, which, as you can see, is his favorite toy, but it is very, very noisy. So I have to take it off him when I'm recording, because otherwise you can hear the neighing of the dog. But yeah, this is my baby. And if he wants to be on camera, I cannot say no to him.
But the answer to the question, though, the reason my video was very tongue-in-cheek, it was very, very comedic, and I made a joke about the fact that there wasn't a religious track. And I guess that might have rubbed a certain individual the wrong way. So that was the last video I put. It was a very tasteful joke, I thought. The joke was basically that if you had a religious track, you would automatically win. It would just like the last track would just be you win the game, because if religion becomes it's in the past. Anyway, we are here to talk about Wyrmspan, which we have here. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not Wyrmspan. That's Wyrmspan. Let's get the right one on here.
That is my favorite meme from the many memes that have come out since we released this name. I've had a lot of fun looking at those.
Oh, I'm glad you could laugh at it. Because I was like, I'm hanging on to this. I hope you can take a joke.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if we were going to make up a name like Wyrmspan, we knew there were going to be some funny plays on that name. So it's been neat to see it. Yeah.
So I've been watching your videos, and we'll go into the mechanical details. Why did you decide, beyond the slight play on words, why did you decide to switch from real birds to fictional dragons? Like, what was the impetus?
Well, it started out with a question of what do we want to do? Do we want to do anything else in the Wingspan brand, or just keep making bird expansions for Wingspan? And we thought, this game has seemed to bring. We could, yeah. Oh, yeah, and we will continue to make expansions for Wingspan. That brand will continue to exist. Elizabeth is working on the next expansion, but we thought, this platform, people seem to really resonate with this platform that we've created for it. Why don't we try it with a different animal, a different beast, whatever it ends up being? But we also want to make the game different. We want to be familiar but different. And really, it came down to, we wanted to start out with a more complex version of Wingspan, and it came down to between dragons and dinosaurs. And I pushed maybe a little bit heavier for dragons, because I like dragons more than dinosaurs.
The dinosaurs, though, that's
yeah. I know people love their dinosaurs.
I mean, God knows that's still not something you haven't eliminated. I hope maybe something a couple of years from now. I guess the educational aspect of Wingspan was always something that attracted to a lot of people, and you switch that with dinosaurs.
Yeah,
you would get my money. Even if it was the same game, like Wyrmspan is a different beast in many ways. But if you literally ported over Wingspan to dinosaurs, I would actually buy that, and I wouldn't let my wife play anything else.
People love their dinosaurs, yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, the dinosaurs have to be real, though. You'd have to have like the feathered. You'd have to have the whole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you decided to push the dragon. Now, at what point did you decide? Like, there must have been a conversation about mythology.
Yeah.
At some point, like, these dragons are entirely fictitious. You've developed a mythology of your own, correct?
Yeah, we kind of it was a multi-person effort. So Connie, the designer of the game, it's really her and Clementine combined. So Clementine is the artist. Clementine, we talked about, like, do we want to use dragons from a specific part of the world? Do we want to tie this to the real world as if there were dragons in the real world? We didn't do that. We said, let's create this fictitious world. I don't think the world even has a name. Maybe it's somewhere in the Dragon fact book. But we wanted to basically have a bunch of dragons that were inspired by different mythology, cultures, lores from around our world, but not actually connected to our world at all. And so you can find dragons in the game that are inspired by Asian mythology, There are coatls from South American mythology, dragons from all over the world, drakes, they're river dragons. And Connie was the one that wrote the dragon facts for all those dragons. So it does have kind of a faux educational aspect to it, even though none of the facts are actually real about the dragons.
So there's a fantasy world where people play a game called Wyrmspan, where the dragons are. Well, these are all the real dragons we have in our world.
And they have Wingspan, and Wingspan are the fake elements of the world. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, that was the big question Paco and I were having when we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. About for obvious reasons you couldn't use IP, but we were asking whether or not there were enough real mythological dragons, potentially because you're dealing with over how many dragon cards are in here?
183.
Yeah, and we were asking whether or not there are 183 real mythological dragons that have actually rooted in real mythology is what I was wondering. But you kind of answered the question, like they are inspired. Like you would have dragons that people could identify as being part of. Like I know this is a worm without any arms and legs because this is something coming out of Norse, or this is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the closest we really get in the game to looking at any dragons that we are familiar with in our world. Like there isn't like a Smog equivalent in this world. There isn't a How to Train Your Dragon. Forget the name of the dragon in that series. Toothless. There you go. Yeah. There isn't a toothless equivalent here. It's more inspired by all these general mythology and lore in our world.
But Jimmy, it does sound like an awful lot of work to go through when you could have just taken the. Let's keep calling them real dragons because it's easier. But you could have taken just real dragons from European, Asian, South American mythology and just put them there. You know, like the Quetzalcoatl or the Spanish Drac, that sort of thing. And it would have been less work. Why did you decide? No, let's reinvent these existing dragons, these real dragons. Why go through that?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Because we probably could have found quite a few dragons that aren't tied to an existing intellectual property. I think I like to explore new worlds in our games, even if those worlds are not all that dissimilar from our own. I just really like that. Maybe it's I read a lot of fantasy and science fiction. I like to see what other worlds look like. So, and Connie was up for it. We probably could have done it if Connie wasn't up for that task, because Connie put a ton of work into not just the design, but all those dragon facts and that world building. But she was excited about it.
Still have the same type of fact that you had in Wingspan. That like do you have all that now fictitious world building?
We do, yeah. It's organized a little separately than in Wingspan. In Wingspan, the bird facts are on the cards themselves. In Wyrmspan, we decided to increase the size of the text a little bit on the cards, and to make room for more robust dragon facts, we have a separate book that comes with the game. It's a 32-page book that has all the dragon facts and little thumbnail photos of the dragons. And so if you want to, like as you play a dragon, you can look it up in the book. It's alphabetical. You can just look up the name of the dragon. And it gave us more space in the book to talk more about each of the dragons instead of being limited to just 2 lines on the card. So, yeah.
Is this a fictitious version of Earth, or is this a fantasy world? Is this if there's a map of the world, this is Europe, but just replayed, or is this an entirely fictitious universe that your team has created?
It's not. I wouldn't say it's an Earth equivalent. I would say it's not completely different than Earth, but yeah, there isn't a Europe equivalent in this world. The continents are completely different in this world.
There we go.
Yeah.
So when we look at the mechanics of the game, one of the things that really got my attention was not what you added as much as you removed, because one of the things I was surprised with is one of the larger mechanics of Wingspan is not present, and that's the dice and the dice tower. Like that's not an aspect that's in this game. Why did this is not criticism? This is the opposite. I love the fact that you removed this, but what was the decision to remove that randomized element to the game?
Yeah, I like what the dice tower brings to Wingspan. I know not everyone likes it, but I like the table presence. I like the wooden dice, and I like that there's a little bit of player interaction there. However, in Wyrmspan, we found in playtesting that players were really frustrated, more so than in Wingspan, if they wanted to play a certain dragon and they just could not get the resources for it. for some reason, and I can't even quite put my finger on it. Maybe it's the extra layers of some of the other elements of the game, but it was just extra frustrating, more frustrating than it is in Wingspan. So we just got rid of it. There are a couple different ways to gain resources in the game, and the most default basic way is gain any resource that you want, any of the 4 resources.
Yeah. So, which is interesting too, because the irony is that this game is more complex.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you've removed the randomization, you've added new mechanics. I don't want to, go into too much details because, there's a great video, about 25 minutes on your channel, which I was watching, which goes into detail the differences. But if you can give us like a roundabout, because I know that the player boards, for example, have way more functionality to them. There's a lot more stuff. You have tiles as well as cards.
They look like tiles.
They look like tiles,
okay. But they're the square cards.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they're before you can play a dragon, you have to excavate a cave. All the caves live in these long caves on your property in this game, on your player mats, and you have to excavate a cave by playing a cave card there. It's a whole other new deck of cards that we added with when played abilities. So that's one added element. As you said, that the player mats are a little bit more robust in that, mostly at the end of the player mat, the far right, when you complete a cave. When you fill it with dragons, you have access to a new powerful ability at the end of that cave. And there's also a benefit at the end of the cave when you excavate the last cave. And going back to the left side of the player mat, I should probably hold it up. I have the game next to me, but it's a little awkward to hold up. On the left side of the cave, the game has an increased cost every time you want to explore a cave, which is the equivalent of just choosing a row of actions in Wingspan. So in Wingspan, you could, and you've probably seen this in games of Wingspan, near the end of the game, a player might just choose the same row over and over and over again, activating their engine, which can feel good, but it can also be a little bit boring to activate the same thing over and over again. In Wyrmspan, you have an increased cost each round the more times you use a row, and the most times you can use a row is 3. So that the cost goes up.
One, and then the second row is added 2 eggs.
There's one coin for all of them, and then 1 egg, and then 2 eggs for the final time. So you have this increased cost to kind of make you really think about it. Do I want to go down this a third time, or do I want to do something different this round?
So it allows people to potentially diversify into the other 2 rows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Paco, sorry, you were going to ask?
Well, yes, but I would like to you two to finish talking about the mechanisms, because what I would like to address is how people are reacting to this, and how can you reassure them? Because this, as usual, when I interview somebody, I go to the Board Game Geek and I take a look at what the game is going to be all about, what kind of components are going to be, and I like to take a look at the comments. And although, there have been some bonkers comments all over the place, but there is a theme that keeps coming back. So I would like to address that, but not before you two finish talking about what the mechanisms of the games are going to be like, and what the differences are going to be between Wyrmspan and Wingspan.
Where the other big chunk was hatchlings. And that's the thing. So in Wingspan, you have eggs, which are totally not Cadbury eggs that we don't swap out whenever we play the game and then just go through a bag, which nobody ever does. But in this game, there's definitely a point where the eggs actually can grow up.
Exactly, yeah. In Wingspan, the eggs are used for points and for resources. Sometimes they have it, you can like spend an egg to do something. But we wanted in Wyrmspan, we wanted an egg to hatch into something. And so there are these 35 of the dragon cards are hatchling cards. To play them, you have to pay a cost, and within that cost is an egg. So they're hatching from an egg, and then they start off as like this little cute baby dragon. And as you feed that dragon, as you visit it and feed it, they give you feed them something, they give you something in return, and then they eventually grow up and they give you a powerful benefit at that moment that they grow up. So there's this nice sense of kind of leveling up and progression within a single card, within the hatchling cards. Yeah. And the other big thing that we have talked about is the Dragon Guild. The Dragon Guild is also a new track that we added to the game, where you're gaining a variety of set benefits on this board, but there's also 4 different Dragon Guilds. So every game you play with a different guild, and whenever you reach the half point on the track and you go around and around, so there are 2 half points for every cycle, you get to place one of your cubes in the middle of the Dragon Guild board, on that specific guild and activate either a powerful one-time ability or a special end-game scoring benefit associated with that guild. So it's kind of these different layers and levels to the game that are just make it a little bit more complex than Wingspan.
All right, Paco, off to you.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask about. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to read the comments because seriously, they're just completely.
I think it's important to talk about. We'll talk about it in a second, but go ahead, Paco.
I think most of them are completely ridiculous and just out of whatever.
For me, it's not. It's not. My issue is not. It's. I hate Board Game Geek. I hate it so much in so many ways because I do not agree with the fact that you cannot curate reviews.
Okay, we could go into that, but I think that would be for a whole different episode. What I like to look into, I like to look behind, and I like to look behind the trend. And the fact is that there are an awful lot of people who have got this distinct impression that this is just a risking of Wingspan and nothing else. So, although I am the kind of commonsensical human being who actually likes to play the game before having a full opinion, but I can also understand, I think it's understandable because there seem to be an awful lot of similarities. So, bearing the fact that you're never going to please the hater, but those who actually think, come on, what is this? What will you have to say to those people who already think that this is going to be a bad copy of Wingspan?
It's a totally fair question. And it's one that I usually try to anticipate questions before I announce a game. This is one that didn't occur to me for a reason that I still don't quite understand, but there's a different designer on the box of this game. If we were just reskinning the game, Elizabeth Hargrave would be the designer, and I would have just commissioned some art from an artist and slapped it on the Wingspan cards. Like that to me is a reskin. Like we've seen reskins of like Splendor. And Splendor even has slightly different mechanisms. Marvel Splendor has slightly different, but for the most part, it's just Splendor with different art on it. That isn't even the best. Right, include, yeah. Like we've seen what a real reskin is, and I thought people would see the name on the box and be like, oh, okay, that clearly isn't a reskin. And there's also the side of it, like Chris mentioned earlier, we've definitely heard from Wingspan fans over the years asking us to reskin Wingspan, and we thought about it. We thought, people like dinosaurs, they like fish, they like bats. We could just reskin Wingspan with one of these other themes, but that's just not exciting to me. Like I don't want to spend. Well, it wouldn't take much time to do that. I'd rather spend a lot of time and effort making something new that doesn't already exist. So I understand the confusion. I get it. But we're just not interested in doing that.
Okay, so let me turn the question around in that case. Let's assume that I am, I've played Wingspan. I think it's one of the most elegantly designed games ever, and I absolutely adored it. And now you're going to bring me something that builds up on kind of the mechanisms. I already have an absolutely wonderful game with lovely expansions that could last me for a very long time. I'm a fan of Wingspan. Why should I actually go for Wyrmspan? What is it going to add to my gaming life that would make it worth it?
That is a great question. And I don't know if I have an answer to that. Like we've talked about the mechanisms. There are a lot of mechanical differences in the game. We made the game, I would say, largely for two groups of people. One are people who never gave Wingspan a try in the first place because they didn't like the theme, which I think is really unfortunate because I've learned to really love birds by playing Wingspan. I didn't notice them as much before until I played Wingspan, and that has really opened my eyes to the world outside. But there are people like that who just didn't care for the theme, not going to try it. And we probably all have games like that where we're like, that theme doesn't appeal to me. I'll play something else. And then we were also trying to appeal to Wingspan fans who wanted to try something a little bit different, a little bit heavier, a twist on a number of the mechanisms in Wingspan. But at the same time, I totally understand where you're coming from. Wingspan will continue to exist and continue to grow with the remaining 3 continents that we have on it. If someone has gone all in on Wingspan and wants to continue to deeply explore that world and doesn't want to go into the world of Wyrmspan, I think that's great too. If you're happy with that experience, stick with it. But if you want to try something else, I think Wyrmspan is going to bring a joy to a lot of people too.
Yeah, and to defend the idea, I mean, so many companies and designers, and I'm not even mentioning you that do take their basic premise, uh, and then build up on that to create variations of the same idea. I mean, one of my wives probably this game is legendary in my circle only because of what happened. I proposed to my wife in a box of Feast for Odin.
Uh-huh.
I hid the engagement ring in Feast for Odin and then rewrapped the game. So when she opened it up, she saw a ring in there. Uh, and that game was designed by Uwe Rosenberg, and he's famous for making other games that use the exact same mechanic. In fact, he made 3 games that are almost reskinning because they have extremely similar themes and similar mechanics. And so we've seen variations of this before. So I don't know, and this is one of those situations where I look at Drive Through RPG, which has curated reviews, and reviews can be flagged if they feels inappropriate. So now we're seeing this situation with Wyrmspan, where the game isn't out yet. When does it release? When's the game releasing, by the way?
It's a late March retail release. We'll have it on our web store on January 31st and shipping in February.
Oh, really? Only a few weeks away. And yet somehow we have dozens and dozens and dozens of reviews already for a game which obviously the vast majority of people could have no way have played. And so, like before, like happened with my game, there are people that feel that they have to be the cultural warriors for this. And so now there is literally, if you go there is a fight of people just posting 1 and 10s to balance each other in the algorithm. And I'm looking at them like, do you have anything better to do? I mean, I have to kind of criticize both, but I feel more critical to the ones because I'm not a person that wants to be negative. I can understand someone's love and hype for a title, so they want to give it a big score even though they haven't played it. I look at Wingspan and I love the game, and then I look at Wyrmspan and I go, well, I'm a fantasy writer and dragons, and I like the increased complexity. I can't see myself going, oh, somehow, despite all the reviews and videos that you have shown and described how the game is, I don't know how in the world I can somehow be disappointed. So I can understand why people wanting to give out good reviews, but it's just so frustrating whenever I see this dichotomy appear. Does it frustrate you when you're like, I have no control over this? I wish. I mean, it's got to be frustrating for you.
I've been doing this for about 12 years now. It used to be really frustrating, especially, it didn't happen all that much actually when Viticulture released in 2013. But then I started to see it happen a lot more with our games and games in general. And it is one of the more disappointing aspects of the hobby. Like you said, Paco, both of you kind of said this, that you'd rather play the game first before making a decision about it. And I do think there is a difference between being excited about something and expressing that excitement and not being excited about something and going out of your way to broadcast to everyone that you're not excited about something. That's just odd to me. Like, there's so many things in this world, so many movies and books that I'm not going to read, but I'm not going to spend time on them. I'm going to spend the time on the books that I am excited to read, the movies that I'm excited to watch, the TV shows that I'm excited to talk about. So it is an odd phenomenon that it happens. But I also know that for our games, at least, that they're going to reach a broader audience. And eventually, these early ratings won't really mean all that much in the greater scheme of things. And eventually, the true rating that you see on Board Game Geek will be predominantly from those who have actually played the game and are expressing their true opinions, whether that's good or bad. We certainly have some games that are not rated well after a lot of people have played them, but we have some that also are very well received. So over time, I think it'll even out.
Yeah. Is there, like, speaking of, this is going to be a strange question now, because is there a game in your portfolio you wish you could go back and go, I wish I could go back to, like, do a quantum leap into yourself when you're younger, going, you know what, I want to do something different with this game. And I know you're going to say, no, all my games are my children, I never want to touch them. No, is there something, if you could go back in time and change the way one of your games was made,
Yeah.
what game would it be and what would you do?
I think I did a video about this a few years ago because I did look at every game and I said, here's the mechanism I would change the most. But I was talking about this recently with my coworker who co-designed Red Rising with me. And I kind of wish with Red Rising that we had gone with a smaller box. I love the look of the box in Red Rising, but it doesn't need to be that big. And I know that doesn't change anything about the gameplay. There are many things not many things, but there are some things I change about the gameplay for all of our games, like tend to be little things. But you asked about kind of the product design. I think we would have gone with a smaller box. It doesn't need to be that big.
Is there a mechanic that you wish you could have changed in any of your games?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I could do one for every game.
I always comment one. I always think Euphoria should have a point system. That was my only criticism of Euphoria. Because Euphoria is a game, for people who don't know, that it has a star system similar to Scythe. You're trying to earn stars, but in Scythe, it is simply a mechanic to generate points, and it also triggers endgame. Where Euphoria, the stars literally end the game and have you win. And I always felt that it could have done better, personally, if I felt if the point system from Scythe got implemented in Euphoria, because I absolutely adore this game. But it's one of those situations where I'm like, I'm done, honey, I win. And she's like, what? and like, there's no, maybe I can scrounge, like, there's no points. Like, it's one of those, like, my wife loves the idea of, you might have triggered the end game, but look at all my final end game point scoring where suddenly I rip-roar past you, which she thought she was going to do with Castle of the Night King Ludwig last week and didn't, because I had a good end game strategy. But it was, that's, like I said, if there was one specific mechanic, you're like, man, we could have done that little twist. It's like one of those things when you see Wyrmspan and you've removed the random mechanic.
Right.
So I was like, I wonder if that was a criticism people had of Wingspan, and you said, well, for Wyrmspan, we're going to take it out. You're saying, no, there was so much going on. There's something new with Wyrmspan that makes the randomization problematic, where it was a benefit in Wingspan.
Oh, yeah, well, but that's also true. Yeah, we looked at it. We've learned so much from Wingspan and all the many different comments we've read about Wingspan over the years, and so a lot of those went into forming Wyrmspan. For example, the once between turns abilities in Wingspan are not that there's anything wrong with those abilities, but they're often they provide some confusion to players. We get a lot of questions, like rules questions about once between turns, and so we just decided since that's confusing people, let's not put that in the game. We'll put end game abilities and round end abilities in there instead. And so I thought that was a nice choice for it. So we did actually poke at quite a few things, including one of the other differences is that in Wingspan, the number of actions you take are set and equal among all players. In Wyrmspan, you can gain new actions. You can gain extra coins and extra actions each round sometimes. Which feels really good, I think, when games do that. So that's another little twist. So yeah, we did prod quite a bit at Wingspan and try to do things differently. Not necessarily always better, because I do like the way that Wingspan is, but differently.
Yeah, because those things like, man, if we did Wingspan, I was like, I would have learned from Wyrmspan and go, maybe if we reboot Wingspan, we would do that. But I totally understand the fact that I like the distinctiveness of the game, the fact that we've learned and we've changed, but we've also gone off in a different direction. Because the caving thing obviously is very much a dragon idea. There's nothing that you could port back over to that.
Exactly.
Question for you: is Wyrmspan going to come with a solo mode as well from the get-go, or are you planning on it?
Yeah, it's a 1 to 5 player game out of the box with a separate Automa rulebook. It has a deck of around, I think, 20 cards for Automa. It's a system that's similar to Wingspan, but it does some things that are a little bit different. I don't know. I do all the multiplayer stuff. I don't do much of the Automa stuff, so I can't speak well informed to those differences, but there are a few in there.
Okay. And the question I also wanted to ask you is, you mentioned about coming out on your website at the end of this month, and March being worldwide. Does that mean that in March they're also coming in different languages? Because I've seen that you've licensed it to Matago and other companies. Are they going to come in multinational at the same time, or will they be released throughout 2024?
I think most of the international partners will release either this summer and maybe a few of them as late as Essen in 2024. The reason for that is typically when we localization partners typically need around 2 to 3 months to translate the files, especially with a lot of text in a game like this. And so when we send the English version to the printer, we could put a hold on it and pause it and wait for a few months. But it's really hard for me to do that. Usually when at that point I'm like, I just want to print it, and then localization partners will come a few months later.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I don't think there is that much of a point in that. And you might be losing sales because some people who don't want to wait for the German or French version may want to buy the English version and then buy the French or whatever version. So,
right,
why wait? And of course, what are the plans for the game? Because I cannot believe for a second that you're just going to release Wyrmspan and
that was going to be my question about
what's going to happen next.
What are the expansion plans that you have there going?
Well, I haven't. So my honest answer is that we really do not have anything in the works or anything planned.
Okay.
But for any game, and I think Wyrmspan, based on the interest I've seen from it so far, I think it is going to sell fairly well and hopefully bring joy to a lot of people. That's the goal. If that goal is accomplished and people really like this game as much as we think they do, then I think it's almost certain that we will try to make something new for the game. Probably a more stuff approach, more dragons, more cave cards, more guilds. But we'll see. Like we usually, I like the game to start to hit the table around the world and see the comments, see what people are really liking, and if there's like maybe one thing that they're not connecting with, then we can adjust that thing, or we can address it. Yeah, so we'll see in February and March, and after I start reading a lot of those comments, we'll decide where we want to go after that.
Would you be open? And this is a completely wild thing that I just thought about. This, by all means, do say never. But would you actually be open to reskinning, relicensing, or updating Wyrmspan for something like, for instance, Dungeons and Dragons that will have hundreds of dragons already, and say, okay, let's do the D&D Wyrmspan? Is that something that could at all possibly interest you? Not that I have any interest in you doing it, because screw Wizards of the Coast at the moment. But was there something that if somebody came to you and said, hey, work on this, would you be tempted?
It's a good question. I would say the
I don't know if
dragons
there's enough.
and oh, go ahead. Oh, you don't think there's enough?
No, I
dragons?
was gonna say, I don't know if there's enough dragons.
Maybe not. Let's say there are. Let's say in one of these universes, that How to Train Your Dragon, Dungeons and Dragons, someplace there are enough dragons. I'd still probably say not, but if it was the type of thing where we sensed that it was that it would really, I mean, it comes back to the joy. If it's going to provide a lot of people joy, if a lot of people want it, and there's a reason for us to do it, we might consider it. But I would say that, like, the one case of this with Wingspan, I'm not really a Pokemon person. I don't know a lot about Pokemon, but I know a lot of people are. And so people asked us quite a bit, would you ever do a Pokemon Wingspan? And we heard it enough that we were like, let's just reach out to Pokemon and see what they say. And they said no. This was a couple years ago. So we did ask them.
Crazy.
Because it does kind of fit with the theme, it would work well. So that was the one that we did consider, just to see if it was an option. And maybe we need to come back to them now that we've sold almost 2 million copies and see if they're interested. But they are also a much more successful company than we will ever be. So I don't think they need another card game.
I have to say, though,
print money with a Pokemon Wingspan.
Yeah, but I have to.
There's a reskinning that would kill. Lord, I never thought of that.
The How to Train Your Dragon bit, I would see, because it's one of my favorite animation movies and best soundtracks ever.
I was thinking, How to Train Your Dragon, I think, would be
amazing.
If I thought there would be an IP that would work, it would probably be How to Train Your Dragon, especially with a live action one coming.
I heard that. Yeah, I'm really excited. I love the series too, and I'm excited. Yeah, so that would, and even in that world, there's like the character has that book of dragons that he goes through that fits perfectly with what we have in Wyrmspan.
Well,
that'll be a fun expansion.
We'll people, if this happens, you saw it here first. We are the visionaries.
Let's get the game out, and let's enjoy the game for what it is. Let's get step A, and then if it blows up, and then the legal thing because it's so much easier to say, "Hey, do a How to Train Your Dragon." And I'm like, "Sure, I'll just pay $40,000 to my lawyers to deal with this for the next year," because I know how difficult that can be. It's easier said than done. So I know we're past our 30-minute interview time.
Oh, that flew by.
I know it happened very, very quickly. I know you have another game called Apiary, which I honestly only discovered recently. And I follow you, which is interesting because I follow you on YouTube. So it was been Wyrmspan.
Right.
And I'm like, and then when oh yeah, new game. Where did this Apiary come from? Why? And I don't know how I missed it. And that's all. I guess it's all on me because obviously I must have missed the 12 videos you made about it. But we'll have some time to talk about that. But yeah, that's been getting great reviews. You're sitting at an eight on Board Game Geeks, and that's a very good number. I
saw Apiary at Essen, and it was already getting very, very good reviews. And the only reason I didn't get it is because it was in the €90 mark, and I just thought I really cannot justify that. I love to, but I
haven't seen the dice.
I did see the whole thing. It was there in front of me, and I thought it's nearly €90, and I have another 35 games that I've got already here that people have given me to review. I cannot possibly justify the expense, but I have to say it looked stunning, absolutely stunning, and people were already raving about it. But
when it's also the same designer as Wyrmspan. This is Connie did both of these games. Yeah. But was that Paco? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was going to say, but it is a game that really has flown under the radar of an awful lot of people because I didn't know it was coming out until I actually saw it there. I thought, wait a second, this is Jamey's. Well, I didn't know this. How did that happen? As in, did you do the same level of marketing and promotion that you've done for other games, or is it something that you just thought, oh, well, this is just one more game?
Well, before he answers, I'll interject that one thing I've noticed about you, Jamey, is that you are kind of like Netflix. You keep things close to the chest, and then a few months before the release, that's when you push it hard.
Yeah,
and that's something that a lot of people don't do. Why do you choose to keep projects so close to the chest until you're ready to basically burst it onto the scene?
My goal there is that we can announce something, hopefully get people excited about it, and then actually get it in their hands while they're still excited about it, instead of other approaches where it just takes so long to get into your hands that maybe you've forgotten why you were excited about it by then. So that is the typical approach we take. As for why Apiary slipped under the radar, it's probably on me. I tried to shine the spotlight on it as big as any other game, but I think maybe it might have had to do a little bit with Essen, because so many games come out at that time of year and are being announced one after another that time of year that maybe it got lost among those games. And that's generally why I try to stay away from convention announcements a little bit, or maybe I should announce things a little bit farther in advance if it is going to be an Essen release.
Well, to be honest, I mean, the thing is that unless you do, the problem in brackets with Essen is that, and in particular last year, there were so many releases that were so well announced that people, I mean, I have very few times seen queues that long at Essen to get some games from some of those booths. So I think, but also you probably get guaranteed sales if you announce, this is going to be there, because let's face it, people follow your company, and anything that you do, they are going to buy. So I think it would be great to be able to see. And actually, when are you going to come to Essen?
Well, this is the first year that we had a booth at Essen. We've typically shared booths with like Matago, with Forland in the past. This year we did kind of share one with Inside Up Games.
They're good people. I love them. They're amazing people.
They're great. Yeah. And so we shared a booth with them. We learned a lot from Connor and his team. I need to definitely visit someday and make that trip. I need to do that. I don't have really a good excuse for not doing so, other than I don't love crowds, but I think it would be fun to go even just for a few days and to experience it.
I think you will.
Well, you and me both about crowds. You go to Gen Con, do you not, though?
I haven't gone in a couple of years. I think the last time I went was in 2016 or 2017. We have a booth there. We work with MeepleSource. Some of my team members go there, but I I kind of just hold fort here in St. Louis while they're at Gen Con.
Yeah, I have problems with crowds, but unfortunately, I'm a company of one, so it's one of those situations where if I have to program my ADHD, I'll go, hey, ADHD, you're very useful, but I need to put you in a door and close the door and put you to the side and just bite the bullet and chew through this. It's also probably because you don't run Kickstarters anymore, so you don't have to have that 2-year
right
conversation window when you're constantly trying to deal with people. You can just keep something close to the chest and then release it. Like I said, I'm fascinated with these B dice. Don't know much about I have to learn about the game, but the fact that you have these B dice. Is that what they are, though? Is that what they are? They are B dice?
I don't want to disappoint you, but you don't roll them. They're workers that level up. You probably could use them as D4 dice if you wanted to, but they're not perfectly balanced. They're meant to just level up. So as you take more actions with them, they gain strength and they do the actions better based on the number on them, and then eventually they go into hibernation. So you don't ever actually roll them.
I've seen dice being used mechanically without being rolled. So sometimes you can call them dice. True. Because I'm using there's numerous games that I've had that where you use dice and the dice are never rolled. They're simply used to adjust that number because it's a simple, easy mechanic. I'm not disappointed. It makes it's but logical sense. We say they wouldn't be balanced. Like, yes, I can see them now. You're 100% right. Like, wow, I keep on getting 2s. If you had a dice that needed a 4, you would use a pyramid, of course. But it is a fascinating looking game that I'm looking forward to trying. As well as Wyrmspan, but I think that's a mandatory purchase. But Paco, is there anything else you want to add before we close?
No. Well, the of course compulsory question of what are you working on next that you probably can't answer either. But I know, but it's a compulsory question. It's something that people expect everybody to ask. So I have. He
has 3 games probably running in his head right now. Right underneath that camera, there are 2 games that we don't know.
There is one kind of off camera right now, and another one that I'm sending to the printer to prototype in a few minutes.
And we have no idea what it is, and you don't tell us.
I can say one of them. I won't say much about it, but I have talked about for a few years now that I've been working on a big open world cooperative adventure game. And it's inspired by Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, like that level of openness. And I've been working on it for a long time. I'm finally actively playtesting it and really enjoying it. So that will hopefully be a 2025 release. I'm working on that right now.
Now that excites me because that kind of games, Wingspan, I loved it. I would like it a lot better if it came with recipes for the birds. That would be amazing as well. Wyrmspan is dragons, so I will probably have to get it because, dragons. But adventure games, that's my thing. So yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anything that's just the idea of you doing a game that's in that vein. I mean, that's a very big genre. Yeah. But my general issue is a lot of times these games they promise a lot and they can't really deliver. And Stegmaier has always been a game that delivers. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to. Obviously, I mean, I have to complete my collection. I mean, viticulture is over there. I forgot to bring that over. I think it would go off the top there. But very much so. I'm looking forward to your current collection and whatever comes in the future. Thank you very much. You always say in your emails, I'm good for 20 minutes. Last year was 20 minutes as well, and we were talking for about an hour and 10 minutes, and we're almost an hour here. So thank you. I'm sure you have somewhere to go. Jamey Stegmaier, thank you very much for accompanying us for this experience.
Well, thank you, Chris and Paco. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Anytime, you're welcome here. Anytime. And believe me, if you come to SN, trust me, we'll look after you. You're going to love the experience. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, Paco will look after you. I'm in Canada, so.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
I know I've told him to his face, but him and Eric Lang are the coolest guys in the board game. And Daryl, I like Daryl as well. So.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. I mean, now I got to spend 20 minutes taking that down and putting them back where they belong.
I feel kind of bad though that I asked him questions that he hadn't thought about and didn't have any answers for. I feel like, Paco, you're an idiot.
do that though. The last time we had him here, we asked him questions he wasn't expecting because the last time we had him in was because of the
Like some controversy with
controversy
viticulture.
around viticulture, and he had the whole response, and I said, "We're not talking about that. I want to talk about how you handle the response, not the response itself, because we know the response." He was like, "Oh, that's actually really interesting." And then we started talking about how he handles controversy, not dealing with the controversy itself. Because I'm like, yeah, but you've dealt you've dealt with that. We're not talking about the controversy. I want to talk about how you handle the controversy and why so many game publishers can't handle controversy. Because it's a rare talent. It's easy to generate controversy. It's easy to generate a response, but how to calculate that response is the interesting thing. I'm actually, like I said, I'm a little annoyed that I missed the apiary buzz. So I
I
think
see
I'm
what you did
definitely
there.
gonna.
I see what you did there.
I should have said that with Jamey. I should have said that with Jamey. I definitely I feel upset missing the apiary buzz, but I'm definitely like we're definitely gonna get Wyrmspan. I think, by the way, if you are open to it, I mentioned a couple months ago about doing quick 3-minute reviews for your channel. That'll go up on your TikTok as well as your channel, something very fast. And
of course,
I
man.
want to do that as an excuse to get fast, rapid fire videos. It also will prevent me from spending 4 days writing the script, and I can finally do reviews for the games of his that I'm missing, because I have not done that review. I haven't done that review, and obviously I haven't done the expansion reviews either. So because I'd love to get Apiary and Wyrmspan in my collection, but I want to finish up my reviews with these before I move on to the next one.
I have to say, Apiary, it did look absolutely amazing. I'm kind of sad that I didn't get it, but €89, it was a bit way up there. And because I'm now
Yeah, $90
focusing,
Canadian. It's yeah.
and the thing is, because I'm also focusing on Asian games, the thing is that I very rarely get the chance to play a game multiple times. So I thought spending €90 in a game that I'm going to play once, perhaps twice, I really cannot possibly justify it. But the people are, in fact, I think they ran out of it. I think by the time that Essen, the spiel was over, I don't think they had any copies left.
But you can buy both Apiary and pre-order Wingspan. Or you can't pre-order Wingspan, but you can buy Apiary, and you can be notified of the launch. January 31st. I wouldn't be surprised if we bought it first thing just to get it in our collection.
I will probably wait until Spiel, because I still have plenty of game from Spiel that I haven't played and reviewed, and I really want to concentrate on those before I buy anything else. But I will probably get Wyrmspan at Spiel, because it's dragons, and if it's got dragons in it, I have to buy it. I've got some sort of weird fantasy fetish with them, not sexual one, but just dragons. I love them. It's the only thing I really love to draw. That and maps. So,
I do know. So I have a game getting set up over there. I don't have my glasses on, and I have a memory like a sieve, so I can't remember what title I have over there. It is. I want to say it's a train game. Right? It's a. Let's see if I can get the name of it. Maglev Metro. So I have Maglev Metro currently set up. So that's going to be my first 3-minute review, which I'll have out for you next week.
that would be absolutely amazing. Anyway, that was an absolutely brilliant interview. But Jamey always is. But to be honest, I think what I hope will happen more than anything is that some people who are genuinely concerned that this may be too close to Wingspan to be worth it will feel at least a bit more inclined to wait and take a look at more videos and more properly, genuinely constructed opinions about the game. Because although when I was reading these absolutely bonkers comments on the Board Game Geek, but I was thinking, I can understand why you would feel that way. I don't understand why you would come to say it, because you don't have any proof or any evidence, but I understand why you feel that way.
Yeah.
And I hope that people who genuinely have that will feel a bit more. And also the people who have played their hell out of Wingspan will think, okay, this will probably have something different, something else to offer, and take a look at it. I would like that very, very much. But
So I'm looking forward to the game, and I'm sure, like I said, as you said, as time passes and the legitimate reviews come in, we're going to see a much more honest review of Wyrmspan. I think people are going to enjoy it. And like I said, there have been moments where I felt that the Stonemaier designs have been a little misstepped. Like I said, the only time I've ever played a game by Stonemaier that I was not unbelievably wowed would be Red Rising. Red Rising was a bit of a disappointment for me. I thought that game was just. I felt it could have been. There should have been more game. It felt a bit light.
mhm,
But I really, really like Euphoria, Scythe, and Wingspan, Tapestry. I mean, Tapestry. I always criticize Tapestry's uh, the power balance
yeah,
of your character cards can really be really out there. But I also enjoy how crazy the game can get. But I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. Before we go, because I know we're running, we're now peaking to our hour point here.
mhm,
Obviously, uh, we'll throw out our memorial for Janelle was it
yes,
Jacques,
mhm,
who passed away a couple weeks ago. She was a designer, trans rights activist. Her wife, Rebecca Heineman,
mhm.
shared the news of her death on January 10th through various social medias. So I think it's important to acknowledge. I didn't have any personal interactions with Janelle. I'm not sure if you had.
I did several times. I did interview her a few years ago. I'm sorry, but I get a bit teary because she was a very important person for me. She campaigned relentlessly for diversity and for trans rights within the gaming community. I got into some hot water with a fair number of people when I, said to them, "Don't dead name her. She doesn't deserve it." Oh, but people are gonna get confused. I don't care if people are confused. They don't need to be confused. She's gone through enough. Going through transition is a really tough journey, especially in a country like the United States, and she didn't deserve it. She was always gracious, kind, funny, and my TikTok food channel is called Beyond Tapas because she suggested that name. Because she said, all we hear about Spanish food more often than not is about tapas. But you're going to take that further. You're going to take it beyond tapas. And I thought, that's the name of the channel, you know.
Yeah.
So I owe it to her. So, yeah, she was unbelievable. She was absolutely unbelievable. She's contributed so much to the world of role playing games and video games. Let's not
Yep,
forget
worked
that
on worked
she
on Quake
was
3.
behind Quake 3, and she was behind some of the best conversions of Colco. So, or Colico, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
So, she was one of the great ones, and she will not be forgotten ever, ever.
Uh, so just for people who want some information, like I said, born in 1956 in Michigan, uh, encountered D&D like a lot of people her age in the 1970s. Formed a fantastic dungeoning society while studying her bachelor's degree in the fine art at Spring Arbor College. She co-authored the Dungeoneer fanzine, designed, wrote, and illustrated adventures full time for several RGB companies in the late 70s before moving into video game industry in the 80s. Uh, she wrote Caverns of Thracia, which is one of the really good proper dungeon crawls.
Yeah, one of the very
And
many that she wrote. Yeah,
yeah,
and
Dark Tower.
yeah, Dark Tower, and she's responsible for the duck species in RuneQuest because she absolutely loved ducks.
Yep, yep. Did that stuff up for Chaos and RuneQuest
Yeah.
and Dragon Mountain. and also video games that we talked about: Quake 3, Quake 2, Age of Empires 3, Halo Wars. 2003, she co-founded, co-authored the syllabus for the Guildhall video game development program at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And so obviously we talked about her support of trans rights. She came out as a trans woman in 2011, and creative director of the Transgender Human Rights Institute in Seattle, campaigned against conversion therapy. Unfortunately, this is a passing that I was surprised how far encompassing it was. I saw it everywhere. It was everybody had posted something on it, so everyone had a Janelle story. So it was nice to see that type of coverage going across social media.
Yes, she was, I think, universally and unanimously loved, and not many people can say that.
No, you're 100% correct, and it's nice to see the community come behind this moment. Like I said, I appreciate and recognize that you had a much more intimate connection with her than I did. I never had the opportunity to have a conversation with Janelle, so I'm glad you had.
I did, and believe me, I had her in the podcast, and she was great, really great. I had conversations with her privately as well about trans rights and transitioning. She was very honest and very open. She commented on my posts many times. So yeah, she was a friend.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and thank you for sharing that. So anyway, guys, is there anything else we wanted to add? I think we should end with that.
Yeah. Before I start crying. So humans, thank you very much indeed. For those of you who've watched the interview until the end, seriously, I hope that it's been useful. Please do leave the comments. We'd genuinely love to hear what you have to say. And hopefully you will get interested in Wyrmspan as much as we are.
Yeah, we're definitely both excited. So anyway, we can find ourselves on all social media channels, Deus Ex Machina and Tavern Snaps on all social media. My Tavern Snaps page, my store page finally went up. So for those people who listen to this, who live in Canada, you can now purchase my cards, my crackers online. Eventually, sometime in the summer, I imagine we will expand to North America and eventually the world.
That would be
until
amazing.
then, we're still limited to Canada.
Good. Send me the link so I can put in the show notes, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Good.